The colony of Vera was not a place where most people stopped for long. It was a frontier outpost on the edge of human-controlled space, a place where trade, rumors, and danger mixed together. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went, every day filling the sky with flashing lights and leaving trails of dust on the ground. To a tired soldier like Mark, it felt both strange and alive. He had spent years moving from one battlefield to another, and now, for the first time, he was walking through a market that seemed to belong to every world but his own. The bazaar stretched across a wide plaza lined with glowing lanterns that burned without fire. Voices rose in many languages. Metal creatures clinked past carrying goods, and tall merchants with scaled faces lifted strange objects into the air, shouting prices. The smell of burning spice and oil hung in the air, mixed with the sweeter scent of fruit that looked nothing like anything on earth. Mark kept his uniform jacket closed, though it marked him clearly as a soldier. People looked at him as he passed, some curious, some wary. Humans were still new in this part of space. His boots carried him down the narrow rows between stalls until his eyes stopped on something unusual. At one corner of the bazaar stood a stall with no bright lanterns or shouting. Merchants, a single figure waited there, silent, cloaked in a flowing garment the color of deep night. The hood shadowed her face, but he could feel her eyes on him even before he reached her. Something about her stillness set her apart from the noise around. Them. He slowed his steps, but curiosity pulled him closer. The figure lifted her hand and revealed a small, crystal vial. Inside the vial was a liquid that shimmered like molten silver and gold, moving as though alive. It caught the light of the market and threw it back in strange patterns across the ground. "Human," the cloaked figure said in a calm voice, neither soft nor harsh. "This is not a place for you to linger. Yet you have been brought here to stand before me." Mark frowned but did not step back. "You seem certain about that?" The figure lowered her hood. Her face was not human. Her skin had a pale glow, smooth and marked with faint blue lines that seemed to pulse like veins of light. Her eyes were larger than his, silver with dark centers that seemed to hold entire skies. Though clearly alien, there was something in her gaze that felt familiar, almost like sorrow. "My name is Aaron," she said, "and what I hold is not for sale. It is an offering." Mark studied the vial. The liquid swirled as though responding to his presence. He gave a small laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You make it sound like you already chose me for something. What is it?" Her hand tightened on the vial. "It is a drink that no outsider has ever touched. It will grant you what few dare to imagine. But it will take something from you in return." She met his eyes without fear. "If you drink this, you will never be human again." The noise of the bazaar seemed to fade, leaving only her words echoing in the air. Mark's heart gave a heavy beat. He thought of his years of war, of the battles he had survived, of the comrades he had buried. He thought of how humanity always seemed outnumbered, always standing against powers larger than themselves. The idea of never being human again should have frightened him. But instead he felt a strange pull, as if his very blood stirred at the promise of change. "And what happens if I walk away?" he asked. "Then the vial returns to silence," Aaron answered. "And perhaps no one will ever carry what it holds. My people guard it, but they can no longer carry it themselves. It waits for a willing soul, one who does not fear the cost." Mark was silent for a moment, but he could see that others in the crowd had noticed. Alien merchants and travelers whispered to each other. Some pointed in his direction, their faces uneasy. It was clear this moment was not ordinary. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why me? You must have a reason." Aaron looked at him as though searching for something beyond his words. "Because when I saw you walk through this place, You carried the weight of many battles, yet your eyes did not bow. You know what it means to stand even when the world tells you to fall. That is the spirit this gift requires. Mark gave a slow breath. He did not fully understand what she meant, but part of him felt as though she had spoken a truth he had always carried. He reached out his hand. Aaron's silver eyes widened slightly. You choose without fear? Mark's voice was steady. Fear never kept me alive. I'll take it. For a long moment, she did not move. The market around them grew quieter, as if all were waiting. Then, with hands that trembled only slightly, Aaron placed the vial in his palm. The crystal was warm to the touch, the liquid within pulsing faintly as though alive. Mark lifted it, feeling the weight of every eye on him, human and alien alike. He tilted his head back and drank. The liquid burned the instant it touched his tongue, spreading like fire through his chest and arms. His knees shook, but he did not let the vial fall. His vision flashed with light. His heartbeat thundered louder than any gunfire he had ever known. The world spun around him as his body gave way to something new. Mark woke in silence. For a moment he thought he was back in a barracks or on some transport ship, but when his eyes opened, he knew he was far from both. The room around him glowed with faint light. Walls of stone were carved with symbols that shifted when he tried to focus on them. They pulsed like a slow heartbeat, as if the room itself was alive. His body ached, but it was not the ache of wounds. It felt deeper, as though every muscle, every bone had been broken down and rebuilt. He pressed his hand against the floor and pushed himself up. His skin felt strange, warmer, sharper. He glanced at his arm and saw faint lines glowing beneath, the surface like threads of light. A figure stood at the far side of the chamber. Aaron. She watched him with her silver eyes, calm but intent. She held no weapon, only folded her hands as if waiting. You should not be able to stand so soon, she said. But you do. Mark took a slow breath. His chest rose and fell in rhythm with a strange energy moving inside him. What did you do to me? Her head tilted slightly. I gave you the elixir. You chose to take it. Now you are changed, not fully of my kind, not fully of your own. Something between. He touched his face, half expecting it to feel unfamiliar. The skin was still his, yet the glow beneath it unsettled him. He caught his reflection in a polished plate on the wall. His eyes, once brown, now carried a faint silver ring around the pupils. Aaron stepped forward. Do you feel fear? He studied her before answering. I feel different. But fear? No. I have faced worse than fear. For the first time, her lips curved into a faint smile, though sadness lingered in it. That is why I chose you. Others would scream. Others would fall. You stand. Mark's legs were steady now, though the power coursing through him felt wild. Why give this to me at all? You said it was not for outsiders. Aaron lifted her hand, and a small panel on the wall lit up, showing shapes of creatures Mark did not recognize. Tall, armored figures with dark wings and jaws like blades. She spoke in a lower voice. Because my people face an enemy that will not stop. They are called the Vorak. They were once a shadow in the far reaches. Now they spread across worlds. We have fought for centuries, and still we fall. The elixir is a last gift, but none of my kind can hold it for long. It destroys us. Only one who carries the spirit of another path can survive it. Only you. Mark stared at the shifting images. The Vorak looked like a nightmare, but he had seen many nightmares before. He clenched his fists. So I was meant to be your weapon. Her silver eyes did not waver. Not weapon. Choice. You could have refused. Many would. But you did not. That is why the elixir burned in you and did not break you. You are bound to it now, and bound to me. Mark raised his brow. Bound? Arin placed her hand on her chest. The elixir ties our fates. If you fall, I fall. If you rise, I rise. It was made so trust could never be broken. We are linked until the end. Mark fell silent. He thought of his old commanders, of the orders he had followed, of the lives traded in war. None of that had ever spoken of bonds, only of strategy. But this was something different. Outside the chamber, distant sounds echoed, voices rising and fading. Mark turned his head. Where are we? In the hidden halls beneath the market, Arin answered. Few know these places. My people built them long ago to guard the elixir. Now they guard you, though they do not yet understand why. Mark flexed his hands again. The glow beneath his skin brightened, then dimmed. His body felt alive with a strength he could not explain. What happens now? Arin's gaze sharpened. Now you must learn what you are. You will be tested. My people will not trust you easily. They will call you corrupted. But if you can prove yourself, you may stand with us when the Vorak come. If you fail, the bond will end. And so will we both. Mark met her eyes. He had heard many warnings in his life. From officers, from doctors, from enemies, yet none struck him as deeply as hers. She was not trying to frighten him. She was giving him the truth. He gave a steady nod. Then I'll prove it. I didn't come this far to fall on the first step. The chamber doors opened with a slow groan, revealing a passage lined with glowing stone. Figures stood waiting in the hall. They were like Arin, but taller, their skin glowing brighter, their armor engraved with shifting lines, their eyes fixed on Mark with suspicion and unease. Arin gestured for him to follow. Come, the council waits. Mark stepped into the hall, the weight of the stairs pressing on him. He could feel their judgment, their doubt, their fear. Yet he walked without hesitation. His boots struck the stone floor, and with each step, the glow beneath his skin flared brighter. The council chamber was wide and circular, with tall pillars, reaching into shadow. At its center stood a raised platform. Arin guided him to stand there while the others gathered around. One elder stepped forward, his voice deep and firm. Arin, what have you done? You bring a human here. And worse, you give him the sacred drink. This is forbidden. Arin's head bowed slightly, but her voice was clear. It was the only way. He survived the change. He carries the bond. He is proof. The elder's eyes narrowed at Mark. Proof of what? That you would risk the fall. Of all for a gamble. Mark said nothing at first. He could feel the weight of their hatred, but also their fear. He knew this moment mattered. He lifted his head and spoke with the same steady tone he had used on battlefields. I didn't ask for this, but I won't waste it. If you think I'm weak, test me. If you think I'm false, cast me out. But if I can fight your enemy, then I will. That's what matters. The chamber filled with murmurs, some voices sharp, others doubtful. Arin's silver eyes never left him, as if willing him to stand firm. The elder raised his hand for silence. He stared at Mark for a long moment, then spoke. Very well. The trial will decide. If you survive it, you may stand with us. If not, you will end here, and so will the bond. Mark gave a small nod. His chest rose with calm breath. He had faced many trials before. This would be another. Mark stood in the chamber long after the council dismissed him. The words of the elder still echoed in his mind. A trial was waiting, but he did not know when or how it would come. What he did know was that his body was no longer the same. Every movement felt both familiar and strange. His muscles carried strength beyond what he remembered, and his senses reached farther than before. He raised his hand in front of his face. The faint silver glow beneath his skin pulsed with each heartbeat. It was not a trick of the light. It was real, alive inside him. He closed his fist and felt a surge of energy race up his arm, quick and hot like fire, but not painful. Erin stepped closer, her cloak brushing the stone floor. She had remained quiet while the council debated, but now she spoke. "You feel the change already, do you not?" Mark lowered his hand. "It feels like my body is not mine anymore. Every breath is heavier, sharper. I can hear sounds I never noticed. I can smell the stone, the air, even the metal in your armor." Her silver eyes studied him carefully. "That is the gift and the burden. The elixir reshapes what you are. It opens paths you never knew. But once opened, they cannot be closed." Mark turned his gaze toward the carvings on the wall. The symbols that had once seemed like shapes now moved in patterns his mind could almost follow. He blinked, and for a moment he understood their meaning. Then the knowledge slipped away. He shook his head. "Even my thoughts feel strange. I look at things and know them, but I do not know why." Aren gave a slow nod. "You are between two worlds now. Human flesh, yet blood touched by my people. The bond changes the way your mind works as much as it changes your body. That is why so many fear it. They believe it erases what you were." Mark gave a half smile. "And does it?" Her voice softened. "That depends on you. Some lose themselves. Others find something greater." Before he could answer, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the hall. 3 warriors entered, taller than Mark, their skin glowing brighter than Erin's. Their armor was lined with sharp designs, and they carried long weapons that seemed to hum with power. One of them spoke firmly. "The council has ordered you to the trial ground. It begins now." Mark felt his chest tighten, but not with fear. It was the weight of decision pressing on him. He glanced at Aren. She gave him a single nod, silent encouragement. He followed the warriors through the winding halls. The trial ground was not what he expected. It was not a simple arena or stage. Instead, they entered a vast cavern lit by streams of glowing crystal. Water dripped from the high ceiling, echoing like a steady drum. The air was colder, sharper. The floor was uneven, broken by jagged rocks and deep cracks. Dozens of Aren's people stood in the high seats carved into the walls. Their glowing forms filled the shadows with light. Mark could feel their eyes on him, measuring, doubting, waiting to see if he would fall. The elder from the council stepped forward. "Human, you drank what was not meant for your kind. You carry what none before you have carried. To prove you are worthy, you must endure the trial of rebirth. If you succeed, you may stand among us. If you fail, you end here." Mark stood tall. "Then tell me what I must face." The elder raised his hand. From the far side of the cavern, a gate of stone slid open. Out stepped a creature unlike anything Mark had seen. It was massive, twice his height, its body covered in dark plates of bone. Its eyes glowed red and its jaws opened with a deep roar that shook the walls. Aren's voice reached him from the side. "It is a beast bred for this. Trial. It will test the strength of your change. Do not hold back. If you do, it will kill you." The beast charged. Mark moved on instinct. His body reacted faster than thought. He leapt aside, his legs carrying him farther than any human leap should. The beast's claws tore stone where he had stood. Mark rolled, came to his feet, and swung, his arm out. His fist struck the beast's side, and to his shock, the impact cracked its armor plate. The glow in his skin flared with the strike. The crowd gasped. The beast turned with another roar, swinging its tail like a hammer. Mark crossed his arms, bracing, and the tail slammed into him. The force drove him back across the stone, his boots skidding, but he did not fall. Pain surged through his body, yet it was met with something else, a deep strength rising from within. He lunged forward. The world slowed around him, his vision sharpening. He saw the path of the beast's next strike. Before it came, he moved under its claws and drove his fist upward into its chest. The sound of breaking armor filled the cavern. The beast staggered but did not fall. It swung again, and Mark was struck across the shoulder. He crashed to the ground, dust rising around him. For a moment his vision blurred, but through the haze he heard Aaron's voice, firm and steady. "Stand, Mark. You chose without fear. Stand." Her words lit a fire inside him. He rose, his body glowing brighter now, lines of silver racing across his arms and chest. He let out a roar of his own, human, yet something more. He charged the beast, each step shaking the ground. The clash was thunder. He struck with both fists, driving the creature back. His hands burned with power, each blow breaking through armor until finally, with one last strike to its head, the beast collapsed to the ground, unmoving. Silence filled the cavern. Mark stood over the fallen creature, chest rising with heavy breaths, his body still glowing with the strange energy of the elixir. Slowly, he lowered his hands. He turned to face the council. The elder studied him, his expression unreadable. At last he spoke. "You have passed the first trial. The bond did not destroy you. It made you strong. But strength alone is not enough. More will be required." The crowd murmured, some voices in awe, others still doubtful. But none could deny what they had seen. Aaron stepped closer, her silver eyes bright. "You see now, Mark. You are not what you were. You are something new." Mark looked down at his hands. The glow was fading, but the power remained. He was no longer fully human. That truth pressed heavy in his heart, yet as he looked back at Aaron, he knew one thing clearly. The cavern trial ended, but the silence that followed weighed heavier on Mark than the fight itself. The crowd began to leave, their glowing forms slipping back into the shadowed tunnels, whispering words he could not understand. Some looked at him with fear, others with cautious respect. None offered welcome. Mark stood still until the beast's body was dragged away. The smell of its blood filled the air, sharp and bitter. His body still ached, but strength lingered in him like a fire that refused to fade. He clenched his fists and then opened them slowly. This was his new reality. Aaron walked to his side, her silver eyes watching him closely. "You did what no other human has done. The council cannot deny it. You survived, and you triumphed." Mark gave a short breath that was half a laugh. "Survived is the right word. That thing nearly tore me apart." "You fought with more than survival," Aaron said. "You fought as if you carried more lives than your own. That is what they saw." Mark turned to her. "And yet I saw their faces. They still don't trust me. They think I am some kind of mistake." Aaron lowered her gaze. "Trust does not grow in a moment. My people have lived with fear for centuries. The Vorak hunted us world by world, until all we had left was hidden places and fading hope. When something unknown appears, even if it saves them, fear speaks first." Mark's voice hardened. "Then tell me, who are the Vorak really? You showed me images, but I need more than shadows." Aaron led him away from the trial ground, back into the deep halls. They walked past walls lined with glowing veins of stone, the air humming faintly with energy. At last, she stopped before a tall door and pressed her hand against it. The stone slid aside, revealing a chamber filled with old carvings and relics. At the center stood a wide table of crystal, and above it a projection flickered to life. Dark shapes filled the air, vast ships with jagged edges moving like predators through the void. Their hulls glowed red, and their weapons burned like suns. Aaron spoke, her voice steady but heavy with memory. "The Vorak are not one race, but many bound into one war machine. They conquer and consume. Every world they take is stripped bare. Every people they capture are forced into their swarm. We once had cities across the stars. Now only fragments remain. Mark stared at the shifting images. The Vorak fleets moved with frightening order, wave after wave cutting through defenses. And you've been fighting them this whole time? Yes, Aaron said. We fought with strength, with faith, with every weapon we could create. But they adapt. Each time we won a battle, they learned, and the next time we faced them, our victories became fewer. The elixir was our final answer, a way to create a warrior who could rise beyond both fear and weakness. But the bond that gives power also destroys us. None of my people can bear it for long. That is why I chose you. Mark folded his arms, his jaw set. You risked everything on a stranger. Her eyes met his without wavering. Not a stranger, a soldier who carries the weight of battles and does not yield. I saw it in you. I still see it now. Mark looked back at the projection. The Vorak ships blotted out stars as they advanced. He thought of Earth, of the colonies, of all the lives that would be crushed if these fleets reached human space. A shiver passed through him, but he steadied himself. If what you say is true, then this war isn't just yours. If they come far enough, humanity will face them too. Aaron nodded. That is why you cannot return to your old life. If your commanders see you now, they will fear you as much as my people do. They will not understand. You will be marked as something other than human. That path is closed to you. Mark was silent for a long moment. The words cut deep, though he had expected them. He had already felt it, the way his body no longer belonged to what it once was. He was a stranger even to himself. At last, he spoke. So I'm cut off. No way back, no way to explain. Only forward. Aaron's voice softened. You are not alone in that. The bond ties us. If you fall, I fall. If you rise, I rise. You may not have chosen me, but now our paths are one. Mark looked at her, studying her face. There was no fear in her eyes, only truth. He gave a small nod. Then I'll rise. Arin gave the faintest smile. Then you must prepare. The Vorak are moving again. Our scouts report fleets massing at the edge of this sector. When they strike, they will strike with all their might. The Council believes they can hide, but hiding will only delay the end. Mark's voice sharpened. Then we don't hide. We fight. Aaron studied him for a moment as if weighing the strength in his words. You speak like one of us already, but strength must be guided. Tomorrow you begin training, not just with blade and strike, but with the bond itself. You must learn to call the power when you need it, and control it before it consumes you. Mark glanced at his hands, remembering the glow that had burned through him in the trial. It had given him victory, but it had also felt wild, like a storm ready to break him if he faltered. He clenched his fists. Then I'll learn, whatever it takes. The chamber fell into quiet, the hum of the crystals, the only sound. Mark looked again at the projection of the Vorak fleets and felt the weight of what was coming. He knew battles. He knew loss. But this war was larger than any he had fought before. He turned back to Aaron. If the Council does not believe in me, if they choose to stand aside, then what happens? Her silver eyes glimmered in the dim light. Then it will be you and me against the storm, and if we fall, there may be no one left to rise again. Mark breathed deeply, steady and calm. He had made his choice when he drank the vial. There was no undoing it. He was no longer just human, no longer just a soldier. He was something new, and his path was bound to a people who had trusted him with their last hope. He placed his hand flat on the table, staring at the Vorak fleets. Then, we don't fall. The morning after the Council's warning, Mark awoke in a chamber lit by soft crystal light. His body still carried the aches from the trial, but beneath the pain there was strength, waiting to be used. He rose, stretched his arms, and felt the silver glow stir faintly beneath his skin. Every movement reminded him that he was not the same man who had walked into the bazaar. Arin entered quietly. She wore light armor now, her cloak set aside. The lines on her armor pulsed faintly, with silver light, matching the patterns beneath her skin. She gave him a long look, then spoke. "The training begins today. The council ordered it, though many of them expect you to fail. That is their hope." Mark smirked. "I've had commanders like that before. Their doubt won't stop me." Arin's eyes softened for a moment. "You will need more than stubbornness. You must learn to shape the power inside you, or it will consume you. The elixir grants strength, but it also demands control." He nodded, pulling on the simple armor set out for him. The weight felt lighter than it looked, his new body carrying it with ease. Together they walked through winding tunnels until they reached a wide training ground. It was open, with high walls carved of stone and sand covering the floor. Dozens of warriors stood waiting. Their eyes glowed brighter than Arin's, their armor gleaming. Mark felt the weight of their stares. One stepped forward, a tall warrior, with scars running across his glowing skin. He carried a long spear in one hand. His voice was sharp. "This is the human? This is the one who drank what none of us could hold? I see only weakness." Mark kept his expression calm. "Then test me." The warrior's eyes narrowed. "I will." Arin lifted her hand. "Kor, he is not your enemy. He is here to learn." But Kor only gave a grim smile. "If he cannot stand against me, he cannot stand against the Vorak. Let this be his lesson." The circle cleared. Mark stood across from Kor, unarmed. The spear hummed as Kor spun it in his hand, the crowd murmuring with anticipation. The strike came fast. Kor lunged, the spear flashing toward Mark's chest. Mark's instincts flared, and he moved faster than any human reflex should allow. He caught the shaft of the spear with both hands, the silver glow in his skin sparking bright. The impact shook his arms, but he held firm. With a twist, he pulled the spear aside and drove his shoulder into Kor's chest. Kor staggered back but recovered quickly. His next strike swept low, aiming for Mark's legs. Mark leapt, soaring higher than he expected, and landed behind his opponent. He struck with his fist, sending Kor stumbling forward. The crowd gasped. Some muttered in disbelief, others watched with growing curiosity. Kor growled, his pride wounded. He spun and thrust again, faster and harder. Mark dodged, blocked, countered. Each strike pushed him to call more of the strange energy within. His skin burned with silver fire, his heart pounding like a drum. Finally, when Kor thrust one last time, Mark caught the spear's point in his glowing hands and snapped the weapon in two. The crowd fell silent. Kor dropped the broken spear, breathing hard. His silver eyes narrowed, but after a long moment, he bowed his head slightly. Perhaps not weakness. Not yet. Arin stepped forward, her gaze steady. "Do you see? He is not ordinary. The bond has made him more than either human or our kind. He can be the bridge we need." The council members who had come to watch said nothing, but their silence held less certainty than before. Training did not stop there. For hours each day, Mark was tested by the warriors. He fought against blades, against bows that fired bolts of light, against pairs of opponents who tried to overwhelm him. At first, he struggled to control the power that surged through him. Sometimes it came too slow, leaving him struck to the ground. Other times it came too fast, burning through him until his vision blurred. But he learned. Arin guided him, teaching him to breathe with the rhythm of the bond, to steady his heart, to call the glow when he needed it, and let it rest when he did not. She showed him how to strike not with force alone, but with balance, to use the instincts of her people that now lived within him. In return, Mark showed her and the others the strategies he had learned as a soldier. He fought not only with strength, but with timing, with feints, with sudden moves that caught even skilled warriors off guard. Slowly, grudgingly, they began to see him not as an outsider, but as a fighter worth respecting. Days turned into weeks. The training ground echoed with the clash of weapons and the shouts of warriors. Mark's body grew stronger, sharper, faster. His mind adapted to the new instincts that flowed through him, and with every test he survived, the bond between him and Aaron deepened. One evening, as the light of the crystals dimmed and the warriors left the ground, Mark sat on the sand catching his breath. Aaron joined him, sitting quietly at his side. "You have come far?" she said softly. Mark gave a small laugh. "Far enough to still be standing, at least." Her silver eyes lingered on him. "More than that. They begin to see what I saw. Some still fear you, but fear can change. Respect grows with time." He leaned back on his hands, looking up at the carved ceiling above. "I've trained in many armies. I've fought in more battles than I can count. But this is different. It feels like I'm not just fighting for orders or land. This fight feels like it matters for more than survival." Aaron's voice was calm. "It matters for everything. If the Vorak break through, there will be no place left to stand. Not for my people, not for yours." Mark was silent for a while. He thought of Earth, of the colonies, of the lives that had never seen war yet could be swallowed in fire if the Vorak reached them. The thought hardened his resolve. Finally he spoke. "Then I'll be ready. Whatever trial they throw next, I'll be ready." Aaron gave the faintest smile. "Then you are closer to being one of us than you know." The training ground grew quiet. The bond between them pulsed faintly, steady and strong. For the first time since he had drunk the vial, Mark felt not just changed but chosen, and in the shadows above the council watched. They saw a human who had taken what should have broken him, and instead of falling he had risen. The alarm came before dawn. A deep horn echoed through the underground halls, shaking the walls and stirring the warriors from their rest. Mark awoke at once, heart racing. He had learned enough in war to know the sound of a battle call. Erin entered his chamber, her armor already secured, her spear glowing with silver light. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "The Vorak have breached the outer defenses. The council has ordered all fighters to the war front." Mark stood and fastened his armor. His body felt heavy, but not with fear. It was the weight of expectation. He followed Aaron through the tunnels until they reached a vast gate carved into the stone. Beyond it lay the surface, and beyond that, the enemy. The warriors gathered in ranks, their armor glowing like stars in the dim morning. Mark stood among them, taller than most, yet still an outsider in their eyes. He felt the bond within him stir, the silver glow ready beneath his skin. He flexed his hands, steadying his breath. The gates opened. The world outside was ash and fire. The ground stretched wide, scarred with trenches and craters. The air smelled of smoke and iron, and across the field the Vorak stood. They were towering creatures, taller than any human, their bodies plated in dark chitin that shimmered with a sickly green glow. Their eyes burned like embers, and their weapons pulsed with energy drawn from strange cores strapped to their backs. Rows of them waited, silent and still, as if carved from the same nightmare. A horn answered from their side, low and terrible. Then the Vorak advanced. The battle began. Aaron raised her spear and shouted in her people's tongue. Her warriors surged forward, their glowing blades clashing against the dark weapons of the enemy. The ground shook beneath the force of the charge. Mark ran at her side, the power inside him building with each step. The first Vorak swung a massive axe toward him. Mark slid low, the blade cutting the air above his head, and struck upward with his fist. Silver fire burst from his hand, cracking through the chitin armor and throwing the creature back. Another charged, roaring in a voice like grinding stone. Mark seized its arm, twisted, and slammed his shoulder into its chest. The impact lit the air with sparks, the Vorak crumpling to the ground. His strength felt endless, but he knew it was not strength alone. The bond guided his movements, his reflexes sharpened by the instincts of Arin's people. Arin fought beside him with deadly grace. Her spear moved like light itself, piercing gaps in the enemy armor, her every strike precise. Together they carved a path through the chaos. But the Vorak were endless. For everyone that fell, two more rose from the smoke. Their weapons fired bolts of green fire that burned through stone and flesh alike. Warriors screamed, shields cracked, the ground became a storm of dust and blood. Mark and Arin fought their way to the front line. A massive Vorak commander appeared, its armor thicker, its weapon a double-bladed axe glowing with energy. It roared, shaking the ground, and charged at them. The clash was thunder. The commander swung with a speed that belied its size. Mark barely dodged, the axe slamming into the ground with an explosion of dirt and stone. He countered with a glowing punch, but the commander caught his arm and hurled him aside. Mark struck the ground hard, the air forced from his chest. Arin leapt forward, her spear stabbing deep into the commander's side. But the beast seized the shaft, snapped it in two, and struck her with its fist. She fell, her armor cracking. Mark's vision blurred, rage boiling in his chest. He forced himself to his feet, the silver fire burning brighter than ever. His body felt as if it would break apart, but he did not care. He charged, tackling the commander with all his strength. They crashed into the ground, rolling in a storm of dust. The commander struck him again and again, but Mark refused to fall. He seized the axe, wrestled it from its grip, and drove the weapon down with a roar. The blade sank deep into the creature's chest, the green glow fading from its eyes as it fell still. Mark staggered up, breathing hard, the axe still in his hands. Around him the battle raged, but he felt a shift. The warriors who had doubted him saw what he had done. They saw the human who had struck down a commander of the Vorak. A cry rose from their ranks, and with renewed fury they pressed forward. The tide began to turn. The Vorak faltered, their lines breaking beneath the combined force of human and alien strength. Mark and Arin fought side by side once more, their movements flowing together as if the bond itself guided them. Each strike carried purpose. Each step carried hope. Hours passed. The sun rose high, burning through the smoke, casting light over the battlefield. At last, the Vorak retreated, their dark forms vanishing into the horizon. The ground was littered with the fallen, the air heavy with silence, broken only by the cries of the wounded. The warriors gathered, bloodied but alive. Mark stood among them, his armor cracked, his body trembling with exhaustion, yet within him the fire still burned. Arin approached, her face pale but her eyes steady. She placed a hand on his arm. "You stood when others would have fallen," she said. "You fought as one of us." Mark looked at her, the weight of the battle heavy in his chest. "We're not done. They'll come again. Stronger." Arin nodded. "Yes, but today we showed them we will not break. Today they learned that humanity does not kneel." The warriors around them raised their weapons in salute. For the first time since the bond had begun, Mark felt truly accepted. He was no longer just a soldier, no longer just a human among aliens. He was something more. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the scarred battlefield. Mark stood at the edge of the war front, his armor battered but still glowing faintly from the bond. The silver energy beneath his skin pulsed with steady rhythm. He breathed deeply, the memory of the last battle vivid in every muscle. The Vorak would return stronger this time, and he knew the final fight was near. Arin approached, her spear in hand. Her eyes scanned the horizon, calculating the movements in the distance. "They are gathering," she said. "Far more than last time. We must prepare the defenses and lead the warriors carefully. This will not be a simple battle. Mark nodded. Then we make this stand count. Today, we show them the strength of two worlds united. The council had gathered on the plateau overlooking the battlefield. Elders and warriors alike were present, their glowing eyes filled with anticipation. Many still harbored doubt, but none could deny Mark's presence had changed the morale of their people. He was no longer an outsider. He was their bridge to victory. Aaron guided Mark to a high vantage point. The Vorak commander you struck before will be leading this fleet. They will test you personally. Your bond must be strong. Your mind and body must work as one. Mark clenched his fists. He remembered the trial, the training, the first battle. Each had pushed him further than he thought possible. Each had prepared him for this moment. "I'm ready," he said. The Vorak came like a storm. From the dark horizon their massive ships emerged, casting shadows across the land. Thousands of creatures marched beneath them, their dark armor reflecting the fading sunlight. The ground trembled with their approach, and the air was filled with the roar of engines and war cries. Aaron raised her spear. "Stand firm! We will not yield!" The warriors followed her lead, forming ranks, their glowing weapons ready. Mark stepped forward to the front line, the bond within him pulsing with energy. His eyes glowed silver as he took in the approaching army. He felt every instinct sharpen, his senses stretching beyond normal human limits. The first wave of Vorak hit. They charged with terrifying speed, their weapons slicing the air. Mark met them head-on, his fists and arms moving with precision. The silver fire within him flared with each strike, breaking through chitin armor and throwing enemies aside. His body flowed with a strength he had never known, guided by the bond that connected him to Aaron. Beside him, Aaron danced through the battlefield. Her spear struck like lightning, her movements swift and deadly. Together, they became a storm of light against the darkness, cutting a path through the enemy ranks. The Vorak commander appeared, towering and terrible, its red eyes fixed on Mark. It roared, the sound vibrating the ground, and swung its massive double-bladed axe. Mark dodged, the strike carving a deep furrow in the soil behind him. He countered, moving with speed and strength, landing blows that cracked the commander's armor. The battle raged around them. Warriors clashed, sparks flew, and the cries of combat filled the air. Mark fought with every ounce of energy, calling on the bond to guide him. He felt Aaron beside him, not just as an ally but as part of himself. Each movement was synchronized, each strike more powerful than the last. The commander roared again and struck with a force that sent Mark flying back. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his body. The Vorak raised its axe for another blow. Mark closed his eyes, feeling the bond surge within him. The silver fire blazed brighter than ever, and he rose in a single motion, faster than human eyes could follow. He struck at the commander's chest, driving the silver energy into its armor. The blow shattered the plating, and the creature staggered. Mark followed with another strike, then another, until finally, with a powerful roar, he delivered a final blow that sent the commander crashing to the ground, unmoving. A cheer rose from the warriors as the Vorak ranks faltered. Mark and Aaron pressed forward, leading the counterattack. The enemy's morale broke as they saw their leader fall. Step by step, wave by wave, the Vorak retreated. The battlefield, once filled with chaos, became a place of victory. Mark fell to his knees, exhausted, the silver fire fading from his skin. Aaron knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "You did it," she said. "You led them. You carried the strength of both our worlds." Mark looked around at the survivors, the warriors who had doubted him before, now standing with respect and awe. He had fought alongside them, not as a human, not as an alien, but as something greater. He had earned their trust, their respect, their hope. Aaron helped him to his feet. "The bond has not ended," she said. It will continue to grow. And so will you. Together we will prepare for whatever comes next. Mark nodded. For the first time since drinking the elixir, he felt at peace with what he had become. He was no longer just human. He was a warrior of both worlds, a protector, a bridge between species. The sun set fully, casting a golden light across the battlefield. The Vorak had been driven back, and the survivors began to tend to the wounded and rebuild their defenses. The council approached Mark and Aaron, their expressions a mixture of relief and respect. An elder stepped forward. You have changed the fate of our people and shown us what courage truly is. We doubted at first, but now we see the truth. Humanity carries strength beyond what we imagined. Mark nodded, feeling the weight of those words. I fight for both our worlds. That will not change. Aaron looked at him, silver eyes bright. And it should not. The bond is strong, and so are we. Today we have won, but tomorrow we prepare. The Vorak will return, and we will face them together. Mark raised his head, the wind carrying the sound of distant streams and the cries of survivors. He felt the elixir's power still within him, steady and strong. He had faced fear, pain, and doubt. He had fought battles that should have broken him, and yet he had risen. He looked at Aaron, and for the first time, he understood the full meaning of her words. He had chosen without fear. He had accepted the unknown. He had become more than himself. And as night fell over the battlefield, Mark and Aaron stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the universe would bring. The war was not over, but they were ready. Together, they had risen, and together, they would continue to rise. The stars appeared overhead, bright and clear, and for the first time, Mark felt hope that stretched beyond the horizon. Humanity and Aaron's people had found an ally in each other, and in that alliance, a new power was born.